From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, April the 19th, 2018. We open with these celebrations across Israel today, marking Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, the Jewish state's milestone 70th anniversary this year. Highlights today included the traditional flyover of military jets and helicopters, festivities at the home of Israel's President Reuven Rivlin, who led commendation ceremonies for outstanding IDF soldiers, and the annual International Bible Quiz competition, which was won by 16-year-old Israeli Azriel Shilat. Last night, the transition from remembrance and mourning to celebration was marked with an elaborate and colorful state ceremony featuring the lighting of torches by 12 people who are seen to have made an outstanding contribution to Israeli society. They included Druze spiritual leader Sheikh Moafik Tarif, beloved Israeli singer Shlomo Artzi, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who also addressed the gathering. Netanyahu said, referring to the destruction of the Second Temple, in the year 70 AD, the menorah went out. But today, in Israel's 70th anniversary, the menorah is our country's symbol, and its light is stronger than ever. He said today there are those who want to extinguish the light in Zion. I promise you, Netanyahu said, this will not happen because our light will always overcome their darkness. We are as strong and determined as ever, adding that our hand is outstretched for peace with any of our neighbors who seek peace. And U.S. President Donald Trump extended his best wishes to the Prime Minister and the people of Israel, tweeting, "We have no better friends anywhere. Looking forward to moving our embassy to Jerusalem next month." Vice President Mike Pence also conveyed his well wishes, tweeting, "The miracle of Israel's rebirth in her historic homeland is an inspiration to the world, and the American people are proud to stand with Israel on this historic day and every day." The U.S. State Department also noted the anticipated move of the embassy. Acting Secretary of State John Sullivan said the United States established our diplomatic presence in Jerusalem well before the State of Israel was born, over 170 years ago. He said this year we look forward to opening the new embassy of the United States in Jerusalem on May the 14th, which coincides with the 70th anniversary of President Truman recognizing the nascent state of Israel. In a rare move, the European Parliament overwhelmingly passed a resolution today that for the first time denounces terror group Hamas as a terrorist group that uses human shields and calls for Israel's destruction. The resolution also states that Hamas seems to aim at escalating tensions at the Gaza-Israel border and calls for Hamas to release the remains of the two fallen IDF soldiers, Oron Shaul and Hadar Golden, as well as to release Israeli citizens it is holding. It also, though, calls for Israel to immediately lift its naval blockade of Gaza and supports calls for investigating Israel's use of live fire at the Gaza fence. The American Jewish Committee's Europe branch welcomed the EU's stance against Hamas. Director Daniel Schwamenthal said the European Parliament deserves praise for its clear-eyed assessment of Hamas's responsibility for escalating the violent protest, by also spelling out and condemning Hamas's war crimes, such as using its own people as human shields and firing rockets on Israeli cities. But Schwamenthal also called out the EU legislature for its criticisms of Israel. Well, an interesting follow-up for you on a story we reported yesterday of a teenager in Berlin wearing a kippah who was assaulted and cursed at for being Jewish and caught the attack on camera. 21-year-old Adam Armush told German news agency Deutsche Welle today that he is not, in fact, Jewish, but wore the kippah as a social experiment. Armush said, "I am not Jewish, I am an Israeli, and I grew up in Israel in an Arab family." He said, "It was an experience for me to wear the skull cap and go out into the street yesterday." He said he filmed the attack, quote, "for the police and for the German people and even the world to see how terrible it is these days as a Jew to go through Berlin streets." German Chancellor Angela Merkel called the assault absolutely terrible. She said the fight against such anti-Semitic acts must be won. The reputation of our state is at stake, and we are committed to it with all our strength. A 19-year-old Palestinian asylum seeker from Syria turned himself in to German police after the video showed him as the attacker. Poland today commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Warsaw ghetto uprising. People across the country wore paper daffodils in remembrance and mourning for the Jews who waged the courageous rebellion. The uprising broke out on April the 19th of 1943, when about 750 young Jewish fighters armed with just pistols attacked a German force more than 3 times its size. The fighters held out for nearly a month. Polish President Andrzej Duda led an official ceremony to honor their bravery and resistance. And we continue to celebrate Israel's Independence Day here on JBS for Thursday, April the 19th with our programming tonight, including at 7 o'clock, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, former UN Ambassador from Israel to the UN Gabriela Shaleb, and the Zamir Chorale celebrate Israel's independence aboard the USS Intrepid. Then at 8 o'clock, it's the film Body and Soul. At 9, Mark Golub hosts a L'chaim roundtable with NYU law professor Thane Rosenbaum, former president of the URJ Eric Yaffe, Betty Ehrenberg of the World Jewish Congress, and David Afun of the Allgemeiner, who offered their thoughts on the significance of Israel's 70th anniversary and reflect upon the most important events and most heroic person in Israel's 70-year history. And then at 10:30, we hear from Israeli innovator Yossi Vardi. And coming up right after this newscast tonight at 6:30, Pastor John Hagee shares his thoughts on Israel and the Jewish people. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, April the 19th, 2018. I'm Teisha Bader. Chag Sameach.